If you were to advise Elon, what are some of the sort of inefficiencies that you've studied that you would tell them, hey, in the defense budget, in the defense spend, this is our inefficiencies. What are some of those specific things you think that you would tell them to get started, to start cutting out?
I would treat the federal government as if it's a failing business that's been put in receivership. And you have to go into it with a real dispassionate view. So the first thing you do is I would look at any program that's over 100 years old, that
Okay.
was created during a time that no longer exists. Anything really that was started during the Depression or beyond. And you can start looking at things like the Export-Import Bank, which was created during the 1930s to facilitate exports and trade with Russia. And now it's just basically a big bank for Boeing and others that sell overseas. Cut that one out. The Rural Electrification Administration, again, created during the Depression to bring electricity to rural America. That can go. And then you've got all kinds of programs. I would call them businesses that the government runs. Things like the Tennessee Valley Authority, again, created during the Great Depression. Why is the U.S. government running an electric utility? The same thing, we have the Power and Market Administrations out west. They're the same sort of thing as the TVA. Why is the government running an electric company out west? Privatize those. Corporation for Public Broadcasting, Big Bird. Well, we all have about 300 channels on cable, and plus all the things that we can do on our phone. We don't need a publicly financed television station. So those are the kind of things that I would do to start with. And then you look at redundancy. Oh my goodness.
Oh, name them all. And how much do you think we're going to spend? I mean, how much do you think we'll save once we start cutting these things?
Well, sometimes it's not a lot, frankly, and it's more symbolic. But I look back a number of years ago. Southwest Airlines released a press release saying that they were no longer going to serve lemons with their drinks on
Okay.
board. And you say, well, why would you do that? Well, what they were trying to do was send a signal that by cutting back on things like lemons in your drinks, this is how they were going to save their customers money and make their more affordable, ticket prices. And that's what a lot of what we're going to have to do in government. Start cutting these little things so that you're sending the signal to both taxpayers and the bureaucracy that we're not going to put up with this anymore. So for instance, the Government Accountability Office, the GAO, did a study a few years ago, and they found that there were, 80 economic development agencies or programs, 100 surface transportation programs, and 44 employment and trading programs. And now that either tells us that one of them or many of them are not successful and we needed more, or else they just kind of spring up like mushrooms over time as we build in this redundancy across government. And we ought to look very seriously at that kind of consolidation, getting rid of all of these programs. If you need more than one, then it ought to tell us it's not working. In fact, there was kind of a funny story a number of years ago where GAO looked at these redundancy and employment and training programs. Half of the programs didn't know how many people they were training, and the other half of the programs knew how many people they trained. They just didn't know if they got jobs after they'd been trained. And so this is government efficiency at work.